admit them as they come in. It says recording has started. Okay. All right, hello everybody. Paul Batt here. I've got Alex Rosen, Kyle Truba on our team as well. We're just going to give it. We're going to give it a couple more minutes. It's 12:58 right now. We are recording this presentation as well. Everyone should be muted, I believe, as they come in. So we'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Okay, it is 1 o'clock. Welcome everybody. My name is Paul Batt with Focus Retirement Services. There's a few advisors on our team that are in the meeting as well. We have Alex Rosen, Kyle Truba, James Kuhn, who are also going to be in the meeting. We're going to give it just another 60 seconds. We have some more people that are joining the meeting, so we'll start in just about 60 seconds. Thank you. Okay, it's now 1 past 1 o'clock, so we'll just get started. Again, my name is Paul Batt with Focus Retirement Services. We also have Alex Rosen, Kyle Truba, James Kuhn, who are advisors on our team that'll be in the meeting, and we'll do just at the very end. We'll share with you everybody's our contact information. We're grateful that you're all joining us. Many of you know, a lot of those that are participating in the meeting here in the presentation are clients and friends of Focus Retirement Services. So this should be a very exciting presentation. We have Doug Ewing, who will be conducting the presentation. Doug is with Nationwide. I'll have him introduce himself and share with you a little bit about what he does and his background. And with that, we'll turn the time over to you, Doug, and take it away.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul, and good afternoon, everybody. Really a pleasure to be with you again. My name is Doug Ewing, and I work for the Nationwide Retirement Institute. In case you're wondering, yes, it's that Nationwide. We all know the jingle. So at the Nationwide Retirement Institute, what I get to do on a pretty regular basis is talk to people about some of the non-investment related issues that we need to be familiar with as we approach retirement. And today I'm excited because this is really one of our most popular topics. We're going to look at Social Security, what we call the choice of a lifetime. So we've got a lot to cover. So let's dive right in. Now, first thing we have to do is carefully read our important disclaimer slide here. So as you guys are carefully reading this slide, I'll take the opportunity to give you a little bit of background about who I am. I am an attorney by background. I also hold a certified financial planner designation. However, it is important for me to point out that while I am an attorney and I am a financial planner, I'm not your attorney and I'm not your financial planner. And all I mean by that, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but all I mean by that is I'm not here today to give advice. Okay. I don't, I'm not trying to tell you what you should or should not do with respect to Social Security. My goal today is to provide an educational overview of how Social Security works so that when the time comes, you can make a well-informed decision that's going to be the best for your individual circumstances. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right in. Here's our agenda for the presentation. You may have noticed the title to the presentation as you were waiting for us to get started. Why do we call it the choice of a lifetime? Well, Social Security is a pretty interesting benefit in that as soon as we become eligible on our 62nd birthday, we have an important decision to make, and that is when do we turn on Social Security? There's a lot to consider there, and we're going to get into that in quite a bit of detail. From there, we're going to look at some of the different features of Social Security. Why is it such an important benefit for so many people? And we're going to make sure that everybody's familiar with the primary retirement benefits that are available, not only to us as workers, but to our spouses potentially as well. And then at the end of the presentation, I will share with you a tool that we offer through financial professionals like Paul and his team. It's called our Social Security 360 Analyzer, and it is designed to help you make a well-informed decision about Social Security. So let's get started. And when we think about the choice of a lifetime, I think it's kind of a fun way to start our discussion to look at what is everybody else doing with respect to Social Security. So as we look at this slide, what we've done is we've pulled some data from the Social Security Administration. So let's check it out. Now, one thing I'll direct your attention to, as I mentioned before, is if you look at the bottom of the slide, you will see that there is this range of ages at which we can claim Social Security. You can claim as early as your 62nd birthday. You can wait all the way until you turn 70. And what we see on this slide is something that we've seen for many, many years. I've been talking about Social Security for a long time, and I can tell you these numbers are pretty consistent from year to year. What we see here is that of people who this data is from 2022, just last year, and of people who were actively claiming Social Security in 2022, what we see is that almost half were claiming benefits before they hit full retirement age. So why is that significant? Well, again, Social Security will allow you now, full retirement age, as we're going to see today, is typically between 66 and 67, depending on when you were born. Now, Social Security allows you to claim benefits as early as age 62, but if you do, what happens? You will get a smaller monthly check, and you will get that smaller monthly check for the rest of your retirement. So if we're going to claim early, we want to make sure we understand all of the ramifications of that. And we're going to look at that in quite a bit of detail in just a little bit. Now, before we move on from this slide, you'll see that some people, not very many, but some people will wait all the way until age 70 to claim Social Security. And you might be wondering, why would anybody do that? Well, just like if you claim early, you get a smaller monthly check. If you can delay claiming Social Security as late as age 70, you can get a significantly bigger monthly check. And I'll tell you where that's very important. For those of you who are married on the call, this is going to impact the survivor benefit that a surviving spouse will get when one spouse passes away. So we'll come back and revisit that in a little bit as well. So when we're talking about, so what we see on the slide is that there's a bias. People typically want to get Social Security coming in sooner rather than later. And when we suggest to people, well, maybe you want to wait until your full retirement age or even a little bit later, you know what? Sometimes we get pushback. People want to know, well, how much money are we really talking about here, right? Does it really make that big of a difference? And the answer is it really can. So what we're going to look at here is a little hypothetical example. This is a pretty common scenario. We've got a married couple here, Pat and Kelly. Pat is 66 years old with a benefit of $2,600 a month. Kelly is a little bit younger, 61 years old with a benefit of $1,900 a month. Now, before I get going here, I do want to make a quick point, and that is all of the rules that we're going to be talking about here today with reference to spouses are completely gender neutral. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're male, female, same-sex marriage, opposite-sex marriage. A spouse is a spouse is a spouse, which is great. But in this example, I am going to assign genders to our couple. I'm going to assume that Pat is a male and Kelly is a female. And so if the rules are all gender neutral, why does that matter? Why do I need to do that? I bet some of you are guessing. Life expectancy, right? Men and women have different life expectancies. So Pat, as a 66-year-old male, we're gonna assume that he's going to live to about 85 years old. That is his statistical life expectancy. Now, Kelly, as a female, we're going to assume that she's going to live to be about 88 years old. That is her statistical life expectancy. So these are their benefits at full retirement age. So the first thing we're going to look at here is, what if Pat and Kelly decided, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and claim our benefit ASAP, right? Because Pat could claim tomorrow. He's 66 years old. Kelly would have to wait until she turns 62. But if they did that, and then they went on to live to their life expectancies, what we would see is that over the course of their retirement, Pat and Kelly would receive about $1,456,000 of Social Security income, which is pretty good, right? Well, the question is, could they do better? What if Pat and Kelly wanted to really maximize the amount of money they got from Social Security based on their anticipated life expectancy? Well, here's what we did. To find this out, we took Pat and Kelly's information and we ran it through our Social Security 360 analyzer. And the strategy that the analyzer recommended was to have Pat wait until 70 and Kelly wait until 69. If they did that, and then they went on to live to that same life expectancy over the course of their retirement, Pat and Kelly could receive an additional $227,000 of Social Security income. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in my world, $227,000 is a significant amount of money. And that's the kind of difference we can be looking at through trying to maximize our Social Security benefits. So it's certainly worth some consideration. Now, some of you might be single and you might be wondering, well, as a single person, does it still make sense to wait? Is it still going to mean as much money? And the answer is yeah, even if your benefit is relatively modest, it can mean a lot of money. So here's another example. We've got Mary. She's 60. Her benefit's a little smaller, just over $1,200 a month. And her full retirement age is 67 years old. So if Mary claimed at 62 and went on to live to be 88 years old, she would receive about $353,000 in benefits over her lifetime. However, if she were to wait until her full retirement age of 67 and then live to be 88, she would receive about $432,000 in benefits. And if she were to wait until 70, in just that 18 years from 70 to 88, she would receive about $478,000. So you can see the difference between claiming at 70 and claiming at 62 is about $125,000. So certainly, we're not trying to suggest, so this is important. We're not trying to suggest that people should always wait, right? There are some situations where claiming early is actually the right approach, but it's definitely worth your time to think this through before you make your Social Security claiming decision. And before we move on, I want to share with you something of a rule of thumb. So let me explain what it is. So if you're comparing these strategies, say we're looking at Mary and we're comparing, claiming at 62 versus claiming at her full retirement age of 67. One question that you might have is, well, if Mary waits until 67 to claim, how long would she have to be collecting before she broke even on that decision, right? In other words, how long would it take the pile of money that she started at 67 to catch up to the pile of money that she could have started at 62? This is commonly called a uh, break-even point. And what we've done at Nationwide is we've looked at a number of different scenarios. We've looked at all sorts of break-even points. And what I can tell you is that a break-even point typically occurs between 79 and 84 years old. And this gives us a little bit of a rule of thumb. If you are not confident that you and your spouse are going to live well into your 70s or your early 80s, well, that's when claiming early might actually be the right call. But if your primary concern in retirement is, what if I live a long time? What if I go on to be 85 or 90 or 95 years old? If that's your primary concern, that is when waiting to claim will typically pay the biggest benefit. So again, we don't know how long we're going to live, but we do get to decide how long we're going to plan for. And if we're planning for a really long retirement, that's when delaying Social Security typically will make the most sense. All right. So let's switch gears now. We're going to get into some what we call Social Security basics. And what we're going to do here is we're going to talk a little bit about the program, and give you a little bit of background and some of the different features of Social Security that make it so important. And as we look at this slide, we're going to kind of make our way from left to right. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that for many people, Social Security is going to be really their primary, if not their only source of guaranteed lifetime income in retirement, right? I mean, in the private sector, traditional pensions have largely gone away. Even in the public sector, we're seeing, pensions largely being phased out. So this is going to be a really important decision. Now, when we talk about guaranteed lifetime income, this sometimes raises some red flags with people because, that idea of it's going to be there forever, right? You might have heard some things in the media recently that have caused you to wonder about the how long Social Security has been around. I couldn't help but notice last week one of the presidential candidates talked about Social Security going bankrupt, right? And that's pretty scary stuff. So let's talk about what's going on with Social Security right now. The reason that we hear comments like that is that there is a big date that is looming with respect to Social Security. So every year, the Social Security Board of Trustees issues a report on the health of the program. And there is a bullet in that report that jumps out at people. And it has to do with the year 2033. In the year 2033, the Social Security Trust Fund, which is this hypothetical surplus of money that the program's been running for years and years and years, that trust fund is scheduled to go to zero. And the question is, what does that mean? What would happen if the Social Security Trust Fund goes to zero? Does it mean that it's bankrupt and the checks all stop? No, that is not what it means. But here's what it does mean. So if the trust fund goes to zero, keep in mind, there will still be money flowing into the system. Everybody who's working will still be paying Social Security taxes. The problem is it won't be enough to cover existing benefits. And because of that, what would happen if the trust fund goes to zero is that there would be an across the board 25% reduction in benefits. So if you were getting $1,000 a month, now you're going to get $750. If you were getting $2,000 a month, now you're getting $1,500. So that's a pretty, that's not a great situation. How likely is it to happen? Well, this is where I'm going to share with you what is really nothing more than my personal opinion, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't think that's very likely to happen. And, it's not because I have any inside information or I've been reading up on Social Security legislation or anything like that. It's simple politics. So just bear with me here for a second. Let's assume it's 2034 and you are a member of Congress, right? You're in the House of Representatives or you're in the Senate and you're running for re-election. But in 2033, everybody on Social Security just took a 25% pay cut. How do you think that would help your reelection prospects? It probably wouldn't be very good. So there's going to be tremendous pressure on Congress in the coming years to address the fiscal health of Social Security. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them to maintain current benefit levels. And the good news is there's a lot of things they could do to help them accomplish that. They might have to raise tax rates. They might have to tax more of our income for Social Security purposes, but there is a lot they can do. And, we'll have to wait and see, but we've got to be mindful of the fact that, if Congress isn't able to get this done, yeah, we could be looking at a benefit cut starting in 2033. So that's another reason to save more for retirement. Now, what about inflation? Another reason that maximizing Social Security can make sense is that unlike some other retirement benefits, Social Security is indexed for inflation. Most people understand there's an annual cost of living adjustment, but what some people don't realize is that cost of living adjustment is based on the actual rate of inflation in the economy. So for 2023, people on Social Security got one of the biggest cost of living adjustments they've had in over 40 years. It was over 8%. So the bigger our monthly check, the bigger that annual cost of living adjustment is going to be. Now, survivor benefits are also very important. So let me take a second and explain how survivor benefits work, because for those of you who are married, this is a really important concept. So let's say that my spouse and I are married, and we are, we're both retired, and we're both collecting Social Security. Let's just assume that my benefit is $2,500 a month, and my spouse, who took a little time out of the workforce, to raise kids, she's going to get about $1,500 a month. So together as a couple, we're getting about $4,000 a month, which is pretty good. The question is, what happens if I die? Well, it's a good news, bad news scenario. Here's the good news. Because my benefit is the higher of the two benefits, my benefit will become my spouse's survivor benefit. So my spouse will go from getting $1,500 a month to getting $2,500 a month. That's the good news. What's the bad news? Well, the bad news is, as a couple, we were getting $4,000 a month. And now as a widow, my spouse is going to have to get by on $2,500 a month. So whenever one spouse dies, there's a reduction in household Social Security. You're going from getting two checks to getting one check. The good news is it's the bigger of the two, but the bad news is it's still a reduction in household income. So here's my question. What if I wanted to maximize my spouse's survivor benefit? I wanted to make sure that when I die, my spouse gets the biggest possible Social Security check. How could I do that? I could wait to claim. Because if instead of claiming at full retirement age and getting $2,500 a month, if I was able to delay claiming Social Security to, say, age 70, my benefit would grow to over $3,000 a month. And when I lock in that higher benefit at age 70, it's not just for me. That will now become my spouse's survivor benefit. So back when we were looking at that slide about when people claim, and I pointed out, some people wait until age 70. I really believe this is probably the number one reason why some people do wait to claim. They're trying to maximize that spousal benefit. So remember, if you're married and if your benefit is the bigger of the two Social Security benefits, when you make your claiming decision, it's not just about you. It's going to have a direct impact on your spouse as well. That's very important. And then preferential tax treatment. Here's something that's nice about Social Security. You don't have to pay taxes on all of your Social Security. At the federal level, your worst case scenario is that you will pay taxes on 85% of your annual Social Security benefit. Many people will pay taxes on less than that, but it'll never be more than 85% of your benefit. And the other nice thing is that in many states with an income tax, including Arizona, You know, if Arizona does not tax Social Security benefits, and Social Security is exempt from state income taxes in many states as well. So that's something to think about as well. So these are all some things that you definitely want to be thinking about when you're making your Social Security claiming decision. All right, so here's a little Social Security history lesson. You might be wondering who this nice lady is on the slide. Well, her name is Ida Mae Fuller, and Ida Mae is something of a celebrity in the Social Security world because she was the very first recipient of a monthly Social Security check. And what's kind of fun about this is you can't see it on the slide, but I can tell you the amount of Ida's monthly check. It was $22.40. That was her monthly Social Security benefit back in 1940, $22.40. And the reason I like to mention that is to make a point, and that is that Social Security was never intended to be our sole source of retirement income. And yeah, so here's a little exercise I want to encourage you to think about when you're thinking about retirement. You know, if you retired this month, think about this. What would your monthly expenses look like next month? Would they change much? Do you know what they are, right? So start thinking about, hey, how much income do I need every month just to keep this all going, right? To keep, you know, food in the fridge, keep the lights on, have a little money left over for fun. What is that monthly number? And then look at your Social Security. What you're going to find is there's typically a gap there. And, you know, why do we save and invest and work with a financial professional? It's so that we can solve for that gap and have the income that we need in retirement. Okay. So now we're getting to the fun part. This is what everybody wants to know. How much am I going to get? Well, I can't tell you exactly how much you're going to get, but I can tell you what you need to know to figure that out. Two terms. The first is your primary insurance amount, and the second is your full retirement age. So let's talk about primary insurance amount first. These terms are very closely related. Your primary insurance amount is very simply the amount of your monthly Social Security check at your full retirement age. That's all it is. And there is a maximum primary insurance amount. For 2023, it's $3,620 a month. So I don't care who you are. You could be Elon Musk, you could be Jeff Bezos. If you're turning full retirement age in 2023, it's $3,620. That's what you're getting. Now, that's not what everybody gets, though, because to get that full Social Security benefit, you have to have a pretty robust earnings history. You would have to earn about $160,000 a year in today's dollars, and that you'd have to go back quite a few years of doing that to qualify for that maximum benefit. So some people, you know, they don't get there. The average person on Social Security gets about $1,800 a month. And, you know, that's because it has to do with your earnings history. But another reason that people get a little bit less, as we're going to see in just a second, is people claim early, right? We talked about that. And when we claim early, that can mean a substantial reduction in benefits. So how do you find out what your benefit is going to be? Well, here's what you do. Go to ssa.gov. This is the official Social Security website, ssa.gov/my account. You can set up a user ID and a password. Once you're in there, you can download a copy of your Social Security statement. I strongly encourage, if you've never done that before, go ahead and get signed up, download your statement. Tons of useful information in there, including what your benefit will look like at every year from 62 all the way to 70. So that's where you can find out your full benefit. Here's what the statement looks like. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this just because of time, but this is what you can get at ssa.gov. Now let's talk about full retirement age. So primary insurance amount is one thing, full retirement age is the other. The good news is full retirement age is pretty easy. As I mentioned before, it's going to be between 66 and 67, depending on when you were born. So all you have to do is look up the year you were born, and that will show you what your full retirement age is. Now, the reason full retirement age is important is because your full retirement age will have an impact on what happens if you claim early versus what happens if you claim later. So on this slide, here's what we're looking at. Let's assume that my benefit was $1,000, my full retirement age is 67, and my benefit is $1,000 a month. Well, as we know, I can claim at 62 if I want to, but with a full retirement age of 67, I'm claiming a full 5 years early now. And as a result of that, if I claim at 62, I'm going to take a substantial reduction in my check. I'm only going to get 70% of my primary insurance amount. And so what this chart also shows us, though, is what if I wait? Well, if you look at the green bars, what we see is for every year that you wait, you get an increase in your monthly check equal to 8% of your primary insurance amount. So think of it as 8% simple interest. So if you can hang in there and wait until 70, it's a 24% higher benefit. You're going to get $1,240 a month. So this gives us a really pretty good idea of, the range of outcomes we can have depending on when we go ahead and turn on our Social Security. Okay, so let's go ahead. We're going to talk about a couple of different rules here. Specifically, most of these pertain to married people. We'll look at spousal benefits. We're going to revisit survivor benefits, and then we'll talk a little bit about divorce. So what is the spousal benefit? And when do you need to be aware of this? Well, in some couples, some married couples, you will have a spouse who has a limited earnings history. And now maybe they don't qualify for Social Security. Now, to qualify for Social Security, it's pretty, you got to work for 10 years. And you got to earn at least $6,000 in each of those 10 years. Once you do that, you qualify for Social Security, but that doesn't mean your benefit's going to be particularly big. Where the spousal benefit comes into play is when we have a spouse who either doesn't qualify for Social Security or they do, but their benefit's going to be relatively small. So let me give you a little example. Let's say I was a stay-at-home dad and I qualify for Social Security, but my monthly check's only going to be about $500 a month. Now, my spouse, on the other hand, she worked all the way through and she has a much bigger benefit. We'll call her benefit $2,000 a month. Well, here's what I need to know. Once my spouse turns on her Social Security benefit, I become entitled to a spousal benefit. And why is that significant? Well, that spousal benefit, as you can see on the slide, that can be as much as 50% of my spouse's primary insurance amount. So if I claim that spousal benefit at full retirement age, guess what? I'm going to get $1,000 a month, even though my benefit's only $500. So as you can see, that spouse for in situations where one spouse has a very small or no Social Security benefit, that spousal benefit becomes very important. Now, you can claim it as early as 62, but just like with your own benefit, if you claim it early, what happens? We reduce it. You don't get the full 50%. But so be aware that spousal benefit is out there. Now, I'm not going to revisit survivor benefits. We've already kind of talked about how they work. I just want to give you a quick heads up about just something to be aware of. Occasionally, we will see somebody who is widowed at a relatively young age, early in retirement. When that happens, keep in mind that you can claim your survivor benefit without any impact on your own benefit. So sometimes, we'll have somebody who's, say, they're 60 years old, they've just recently been widowed. Well, here's a strategy they can do. They can claim their survivor benefit, collect that for a while, but if their own benefit is bigger, a little bit later in retirement, they can switch over to their own benefit and collect the higher benefit going forward. So when we have somebody widowed at an early age, just be aware that there are some really important Social Security strategies that can help maximize the benefit that surviving spouse can receive by taking, you don't get to collect both at the same time, right? You don't get your survivor benefit and your own benefit, but what you can do is you can generally what you want to do is figure out which benefit is potentially going to be higher. Do what you need to do to maximize that benefit, usually by waiting to claim it. But while you're waiting, you can claim the other benefits. So I know that's a little bit of a tricky concept if you didn't completely follow it. Don't worry, just remember that widows, especially when they're widowed at a young age, they're going to want to sit down with somebody knowledgeable about Social Security and come up with a strategy for that. Okay, what about divorce? This is, we get a lot of questions about divorce. So if you're divorced and you are wondering about collecting Social Security benefits on your ex-spouse's record, the first question we need to ask is, how long were you married? And the magic number is 10 years. Once you're married to somebody for 10 years, even if you get divorced, you still have a right to claim benefits on your ex-spouse's record. That means if you need a spousal benefit, you can get a spousal benefit. It means if your ex dies, you can get a survivor benefit. So that can be pretty important. Now, the big question that comes up a lot, and the thing that causes a lot of confusion about divorce, is remarriage. And so I've been talking about this for a long time. I think I've kind of boiled it down to two basic rules to remember when it comes to remarriage and Social Security benefits for divorced people. Here's rule number one. We don't care if your ex gets remarried. If your ex gets remarried, it does not impact your ability to make a claim on their record. And here's another thing that's really important to be aware of. You making a claim on your ex-spouse's record, it does not impact your ex at all. It does not impact your ex's new spouse at all. That's why we say we don't care if your ex gets remarried. So if you're divorced and you have questions about benefits that you might be entitled based on your ex-spouse's record, here's all you need to do. You don't need their permission. You don't need their cooperation. All you need is date of birth, Social Security number, proof that you were married for 10 years. You make an appointment at Social Security. They'll pull that record. They'll tell you what you're entitled to. And if you need it, take it. Don't worry about your ex. They'll be fine. Okay, here's rule number two, though. We don't care if your ex gets remarried, but we do care if you get remarried. Because if you get remarried, you may no longer be able to make a claim on your ex's record. So the first part of this rule is pretty simple. If you get remarried, you cannot claim a spousal benefit based on your ex. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it. You have a new spouse now. You can claim on your new spouse. So if you get remarried, no spousal benefit based on your ex. Now, when it comes to survivor benefits, it's a little trickier because now we don't just care if you get remarried, we actually care when you get remarried. So if you get remarried before you turn 60 and your ex dies, you do not collect a survivor benefit based on your ex because you got remarried before 60. But if you get remarried at age 60 or later and your ex dies, guess what? You can collect a survivor benefit even though you're now married to somebody else. So you probably didn't think when you got on this webinar today, you were going to get marriage advice, but here goes. Let's say you're 50 something years old. You're divorced. You're thinking about getting remarried. Here's the advice. Schedule the wedding for after your 60th birthday, because that way, if your ex passes away, you're going to be able to collect a check, even though you're now married to somebody else. So just a little something to think about there. One last thing on divorce. This question comes up a lot. What if I was married to somebody for 10 years and then I got divorced and then I got remarried, but that marriage didn't last very long and got divorced again? Can I go back and make a claim against ex number one? Yes, you can. As long as you are currently unmarried, you can go back and make a claim against any ex-spouse to whom you were married for 10 years. So just information to be aware of. All right. I thought I'm not going to talk about government employees today in the interest of time. If you are a government employee, you have questions, I'm happy to try to fill those a little bit later. So, okay, sometimes we already saw people are pretty anxious to collect Social Security. Sometimes people are so anxious to collect Social Security that they don't even want to wait until they're done working. So here's a question we get. Can I file for Social Security even if I'm still working? Well, the answer to that is yes, you can. However, here's the problem. If you are not full retirement age yet, your Social Security will hold back part of your benefit based on your earnings from work. So if you look at the left side of the slide here, you'll see there's a threshold. It's about $21,000. For every $2 you make over that threshold, Social Security is going to hold back $1 of your benefit. So if you made 61,000, that's 40 over the threshold. That means Social Security would hold back $20,000 of your annual benefit. And now the thing about this holdback is that money's not gone forever. Eventually, you're going to get that money back eventually, because here's what happens. Once you hit full retirement age, not only does the withholding stop, but they take the money they held back and they build it back into your check going forward. So you will get that money back eventually, but it's going to take a long time to get it back. The bigger issue with withholding, and in my experience, and I have to be careful with that term withholding. We're not talking about tax withholding here. We're just talking about Social Security reducing the amount of your monthly check. Once you hit full retirement age, they will stop doing that. So to me, there's a little bit of a rule of thumb here. If you're still working and you're thinking about claiming Social Security, here's what I would suggest. You might want to wait until one of two things happens. Either A, you stop working, because once you're retired, you don't have to worry about this holdback. Or B, you hit full retirement age, because once you hit full retirement age, you can work, you can collect your full Social Security benefit. They're not going to hold any more back. So just be aware of that. If you're still working, you really want to think carefully about whether claiming Social Security is actually going to make sense. All right. So what I want to do now very quickly in the last couple of minutes here is I want to share with you a tool that we offer through financial professionals like Paul, Kyle, Alex, James. It's called our Social Security 360 Analyzer. And what this tool is, because we've covered a lot today, and I recognize, I'm throwing a lot of information on you. It's sometimes it's hard to keep it all straight. This is a tool where we can take your information and we can really break down your situation for you. So we will recommend. So the 360 Analyzer will actually show you how to maximize your Social Security benefit based on your anticipated life expectancy, and it will give you step-by-step instructions on how to file. This is when you claim. This is when your spouse claims. So in order to get the report, there is a fact finder here. Now we're going to share this with you after the presentation. And in order to fill out this fact finder, though, what I will tell you is you got to go to ssa.gov first, get your statement, because you're going to need that information to fill out the fact finder. So get your statement, then get the fact finder, you fill it out. We will take that information and we will prepare a nice report for you. And as I said, that report's going to show you step by step how to maximize your benefit. Now, I just want to hit just a couple of quick highlights from the report because I think they're important. Now, here's a little inside baseball on the 360 Analyzer. In many cases, you know what the analyzer is going to suggest you do? Wait until 70. Because, we talked about life expectancies are in the mid 80s, but break-even points typically occur in the early 80s. So if you live to your life expectancy, usually what that means is waiting until 70 will provide you with the biggest benefit. And we see that on this slide. If you look at the purple bars here, what we're showing is this would be your cumulative lifetime Social Security benefit if you wait until age 70. But here's the thing. We know a lot of people don't want to wait until 70. I'm already a little bummed out. I've got to wait until 67 just to get my full benefit. So I might want to see, well, what would my cumulative lifetime benefit look like if I claimed at 67? Well, we can show you that here on this exam. These are the green bars. This is my benefit at 67. And you know what? There are no right or wrong answers here. You know, I might look at these two numbers and say 70, 67. You know what? It's close enough. I'm going to claim it 67. And, you know, at least I'm making a fully informed decision. I mean, I understand if I live to be 80 or 85 or 90 years old, am I leaving a little money on the table? Yeah, I could be leaving a little money on the table. But you know what? If I'm 90 years old, I don't know if I'm going to care that much at that point. So, you know, it's just it's good information to have. We can show you, you know, we talked about break even points. This chart shows, you know, how long do I have to live and how long does my spouse have to live for this decision to wait to actually pay off. But this last chart I think is really important because remember when we were talking about item A Fuller and understanding your expenses each month and having a plan for that? Well, that's kind of what we're doing here. So if you look at this chart, if you look at the thin blue line that runs across the top, that's your desired annual income. That's the amount of money you need to have every year. Again, keep some food in the fridge, keep the lights on, have a little money left over for fun. And then when we look at the dotted and dashed lines at the bottom, these are the different Social Security strategies. And no matter which one I choose, what do we see? There's a gap here between what I need and what Social Security is going to provide. And I think an excellent strategy in order to be fully prepared for retirement is to sit down with your financial professional and figure out, how are we going to solve that gap? Am I saving enough? How am I investing it? And what, you know, how can I get the additional income I need in retirement on top of my Social Security with the lowest possible outlay of cash in order to get that additional income? And that's something that, like I say, you know, Paul and his team, they can definitely help you with that. So we have covered a lot. And I didn't want to go on too long today because I know you guys are taking time out of your day to be here. But I'm going to take a second. I can turn it back over to Paul. And Paul, I think, so why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they can follow up with you, and
Okay.
and we'll just take it from there. And if any questions came in, I'm happy to field a question or two, whatever
Sounds
you want
good.
to do.
All right. Thank you, Doug. That was some great and valuable information. Appreciate everything that you shared with us. For those of you that are interested, if you're interested in that 360 analyzer, just let us know. I'm going to share my screen here. Can you see that? Can everybody see that okay? Doug, can you?
Yes, there we go. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So here's Alex, here's Kyle. We need to figure out how to stick James in there as well, because we added another advisor to our team not too long ago, James Kuhn. And so feel free to reach out to us if you would like access to that analyzer, to the fact finder, any additional material that we can provide to you from Nationwide, we'd be happy to do so. Thank you, everybody, for being on the call. Appreciate your time and hope you all have a great rest of your day. We're just going to leave our contact information up here. Thanks again, Doug. That was wonderful information. Appreciate it. And hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.